everyone, Joe here from ActionX. Welcome to What's on the Tube, where this is ActionX's premiere show where we talk about everything TV show related, whether that is reviewing shows by an episode by episode basis, reviewing whole seasons of shows, or doing these quick impressions, which we are doing today because usually on the Monday time slot here on ActionX for What's on the Tube, we would be doing our rookie season 3 episode reviews. However, because of logistics and television filming and Super Bowl Sunday next week, we're on a little bit of a break. So this week I'm tackling on Smallville. I finally finished Smallville after 4 years of watching it. It took me a while to get through it. It took me a really long while to get through it, and for good reason. So when I started watching Smallville was back in 2016. I had just came off a hunting trip. I believe I was in Manhattan. I was doing a solo trip on my own, and I found Smallville season 1. And I knew I always wanted to see Smallville. It was something in the comic book realm that was it had a lot of inspiration towards the current modern generation. I think Smallville was the show to really start putting high gears into like every other network to get into their own superhero shows. And it kind of created the basis for that. And so I knew I had to eventually see it because I think at the time I was still watching Gotham. But even though when Smallville finally came out, it was already finished. I knew of Smallville since I think the first time I've actually seen a clip of Smallville was when it was YouTube 2011. So I was still in the freshness of it, in terms of me creating content and me as, just still a kid. That everyone was like clamoring, oh, Superman's finally here. Like, oh, what's going on? I want to go see this. And I was so confused by then. I was like, I don't get it. I really don't take 10 seasons to get to like finally getting to see Superman. I was so confused because I really didn't know what the hell was going on. And then 5 years later, I finally got to see season 1 and I began understanding the journey. And at the time, I didn't have Hulu. I think it was on, I don't know if it was ever on Netflix. I wouldn't be surprised if it was, and then it came and went. But I knew it was on Hulu for the longest time. But my only real, this was before I really got into streaming services. I think I didn't even pay for a streaming service until Hulu last year. So it was quite a stretch. And so for me, my only real source of getting into that was through the DVDs. And there would be periods where I would go to my usual stores, my hunting stores. They wouldn't have the next season, or at least the thing about Smallville in terms of the DVD boxes is that they have very different sizes of the cases. So there would be the standard, there would be the fatter version, there would be the medium fat version. There was just so many different versions of it. It frankly annoyed the hell out of me. But I was very thankful that I've so far I have not finished my collection yet. I've only collected up to season 5, which is why I stopped for a while. I think I stopped watching Smallville back in back in 2018, I want to say. So it was a while because I was hit hard by school. I was trying to make this channel more, I was trying to figure out a way to get this channel back up and running in terms of making content on the daily, or at least making content more frequently. And I think that was when the Funko Pop addiction was starting to hit its peak, so I was starting to focus my attention away from that. A lot of things happened and also I couldn't find a really good condition in season 6. So for the longest time, I didn't bother to continue. And then finally last year with the pandemic and everything, I said, screw it, I want to finish the show. So while I was in between the Arrow and Doctor Who series runs, every series run that we did last year, I would watch Smallville to kind of keep me entertained while I was waiting for George and Sal respectfully to go finish their side of the project. And finally on December, or I think it was December. Was it December? It was November. It was November of 20 of I think I just finished a season of Arrow for the review, and then I finally finished Smallville, and I was very satisfied with myself for finally finishing it. And now with enough of all the backstory out of the way, what was my quick impressions of Smallville? I frankly enjoyed it. I do not think it's perfect. I definitely believe they pandered the story a lot because they just want to, milk on the success, and then inevitably realize, well, now we're stuck with this longer story. So now they have to figure out a way to get this wrapped out at a certain time period. And so for me, was 10 seasons a lot? it had similar, even though Gotham came after it, for me, since I watched Gotham first, I feel like it very much implemented the whole Gotham method of like, they exhausted almost every villain in that hero's arsenal before they actually became the hero. So for Smallville's case, they went through almost, I think, every single big bad, like in terms of like the real villains for Superman before Clark Kent even became Superman. And that was kind of funny, even though, like, yeah, technically most of them doesn't matter on age. And I think that even the core Clark and Lex dynamic could, like, that was only the beginning. I knew going into it, like, they're gonna continue having this rivalry for years to come post the show. So I didn't really mind that. Gotham was a different story, but we'll talk about that at some point in the future. But for Smallville, it always concerned, like, another thing that I was questioning going into it. So they're gonna do the entire 10 years on Smallville, like in the town of Smallville, because I think the first 4 seasons were definitely like 4 or 5 was like, we're in Smallville, all the events are happening in Smallville. Smallville's a special place. But inevitably, you kept milking that out. It's like, okay, then this thing happened, and this thing happened. It's like, oh my god, everything just happened in Smallville. Until inevitably, and this is not a spoiler, because this inevitably comes into play in the second half of the series. One of Clark Kent's, I think the first half of the series was definitely the connection of Smallville to Clark's larger lineage and his larger destiny. The second half of the series was definitely Clark becoming the person he needed to be. But he always had to know in his heart that there will always be a piece of Smallville, his hometown, inside of him that's going to keep him grounded and keep him being good and pure to become the man of steel that we needed him to be. If that makes sense, if that analogy makes sense. But no, in all honesty, they did such a good job of keeping that flowing through that. Yeah, even though inevitably, like, they moved from, because here's the thing, if you're a Superman fan, you should know this, like, there's Metropolis as well. Metropolis is definitely if they play a part in the series in terms of the city. And so when it came to that, when we got to that point of the story, like, we had to fully move to Metropolis. Even then, I still knew like, no, I mean, Lois Lane, who's in the show, because again, Superman mythos, this is basic Superman 101. She's in the show too, and her nickname for Clark is Smallville. So inevitably, in a way, Smallville did, like, the name of the show did not just represent the town; it also represented Clark. So even though we moved fully from the town of Clark's adventures in Smallville, we kept following his journey, but his nickname was Smallville. So that's kind of how I like to view things in terms of like, in terms of just not like just calling the show Clark Kent or something or whatever. Although again, Gotham's a different terminology because, like, no one ever called Bruce Wayne Gotham or anything. But okay, I know I think it's overdue for a Gotham review, but hopefully one day soon. So anyway, back to Smallville. I think for me the most important thing about the show, and here's the thing: if you're new to these quick impressions, I am not spoiling anything, so there's no major spoilers. What I will say is that I think I will say everything about up to season 1 in terms of anything from the pilot episode is up for grabs in terms of me talking about it. Anything else is like, that's going to be saved for like something else down the line. If we inevitably do in every Smallville season, which I highly doubt it. That's like something I would like to do, and I would love to give this show another rewatch, this time with the perspective of knowing everything that's going on. I don't think that's in the cards right now, but anyway, so talking about the actual show itself, the characters, because I feel like the show never really had like an ensemble. Now, I know that's weird to say because, like, yeah, it is an ensemble cast. We have all these cast members, but it's not like a How I Met Your Mother or My Hero Academia or even a Legends of Tomorrow, where I'm bringing those 3 shows up, for example, because, like, those are made to have such a larger core cast. You still have your main protagonist, but, like, they still have, like, a great sort of, cast around them to kind of, like, they can always also carry their own story. I can't say for sure, and I can't say for 100% that they did the same thing for Smallville, because to be honest, Clark just received so much of the attention. Yeah, don't get me wrong. We had Lana, we had Chloe, we had Pete there for a while. We had the Kents, like the parents, and we have like, of course, obviously more and more cast members like Lex Luthor, of course, and Lionel Luthor, and then inevitably we get to the new character like Lois Lane and Oliver Queen and Tess Mercer. We get to those characters eventually, but I never really could see them. I don't think the show ever really made it like they were there, but for me, I mean, again, I could change my mind if I ever do a rewatch for whatever purpose. My mind could change. I'm just telling you my quick impressions of it. I never really got hooked into their storylines than Clark's. Because, again, Clark is the most important character of the show. The whole point of the show is to get him to be Superman. Through their own, way of storytelling of getting us there. And I think what they, again, this is my opinion, I think they had to lose a little bit on the other characters along the way to focus on Clark. How does he grow from being a teenager from Smallville, Kansas, to eventually being the world's greatest superhero? How do we get to that point? And I feel like that had to be the core, that we would still get character backstory. We would still get like development on every character. Don't get me wrong on that. But I just could not see them really like juggling everyone and giving them their own equal piece. It was definitely, if we had to push them aside for Clark's journey, which I think for Clark's journey, again, played by the amazing Tom Welling. I don't know why growing up I never saw Tom Welling as Superman. I never did, but that's the thing I realized after watching the show, and I think either the actor would agree with me, or maybe the fan base would agree with me. He's not Superman. Yes, his character is going to be Superman, but he did such a great Clark Kent that sure, he would look amazing in the suit, and he would probably be a pretty good Superman, but the whole point of the show was not meant for him to be Superman. We spent so much of his time as Clark Kent, we never got to see him in the Superman persona, if you know what I mean. Like, when you see Arrow or The Flash, there is a difference between Oliver Queen and the Green Arrow. There's a difference between Barry Allen and the Flash. There's a difference. And here, we never saw Superman on the show. We saw him via CG moments, but we never get to see him. This is Clark Kent's story. And Tom Welling did such a great job performing that journey of like a man who's always in a question his destiny. He's like, is this really his right path? Is there another way? Or is it like, it thinks like an actual human being. Like anyone would have that, internal conversation with themselves. Like, is this the right path? Is this what I am going to become? And he did that so much. He did that role so well that I don't view him as a Superman. I view him as a Clark Kent, and he did such an amazing job on that. And that's the whole point. Is his journey, the whole actor's, his role was to get and perform a Clark Kent that's going to be Superman, but we never get to see his Superman, if that makes any sense. But then, and then you have other characters, but I think the second biggest character of them all is Lex Luthor, which sadly is only in the first 7 seasons, which I think is fine enough, since even though I love Michael Rosenbaum, I listen to his podcast on the weekly. I think he's a great guy. Go support him. I very much felt like towards the end of his run, they were really running out of ideas for Lex. Because even though, in the comic books, he is the villain to Superman, and they managed to give that rivalry meaning and really made it work in the context of a pre-Superman world, inevitably you run out of ideas, and I have no idea what they could have done had, the actor stayed on for another 3 seasons. I could not even imagine it, but, they made it work with what they can. They definitely gave us moments of, like, thinking maybe this could be something different. Maybe we don't have to follow the comic, and then I don't exactly remember how, but it was just a clash of dynamics and clash of personalities. Like, these two could be friends on the surface, but once they start really getting into it and getting down to the actual brass taxes, you realize these are two completely different human beings with two very different sets of morals that's going to collide with each other, and inevitably when later down in the series they will collide. It's inevitable, and that's how it works. But beyond, again, I think Michael Rosenbaum delivers, I think, one of the best portrayals of Lex Luthor. And I don't mean that to be sucking on anyone's ego. I don't mean to do any of that. I actually do mean, I think of all the Lex Luthors I've seen on screen, which has been him, the Jesse Eisenberg version from the DCEU, and the Superman Returns version, which I won't mention the name. I think he still performs the best out of all of them. And it could just because, and oh yeah, John Cryer's one too. No offense, John Cryer. No offense. I forgot about you for a second, but I think out of him right now, he's done the most material to work with, because I think even though there hasn't been a lot of people to portray the character, I feel like he's definitely the one who has been given the most time with it, and given the most time to work with the material and to forge his own Lex Luthor. And I feel like, that worked out in the end, even though he wasn't there for the full run, but it also helped on Clark's journey to give him a little bit of a break before his inevitable clash again with him. And as for the other characters, Chloe was good. I feel like it's weird, I never really view Chloe as I don't know, I'm fond of her character, but I'm not really I wasn't too enthralled with her, and especially towards the later half, they kind of put her wherever she needed to do, and I feel like there's a certain storyline later on the show that was kind of really, we're gonna subject her to this role? All right, whatever's meant to keep moving the plot. Lana, actually, I think now that I'm more thinking about it, I think she definitely had a much more pretty interesting journey, where I won't spoil anything about her journey, but I think when you started her out, I feel like this is going to be a very basic two-dimensional love interest, but they did so much more for her character, and I feel like also the actress, Christian Crux, I think that's her last name, I think she did a great job of not staying in the norms of being just the damsel in distress. She had her own storylines going on, and there's a clear shift between her in episode 1 to her in her last episode in the show, because she does not stay on for the full 10 years either. But I definitely feel like she had the most she had a very compelling journey in her own right, and I feel like the writers did such a great job of evolving her past just being Clark's love interest, and they managed to find a natural progression for that. And yeah, again, this is a quick impression, so I'm not spoiling anything beyond that, since that will contain spoilers for future characters that pop in and out. But I essentially really did enjoy the show. I really did. I would be game to do a rewatch at some point in the future. I don't know when, where, and why, but I'd be down. Maybe not this year, maybe next year, but who knows? Who very much knows? I would very much strongly recommend Smallville. Would I recommend staying around for the full 10 years? That's a big iffy. I definitely know stay for the first 7, because I think that's when the original showrunners were still around. Which also, I forgot to mention, the original showrunners for Smallville were the people who wrote Spider-Man 2, which is, I think, one of my favorite movies of all time, which I'm this is dope. And that's another reason they know how to make a good character journey, which they did here. So for me, I would highly recommend Smallville, at least up to the first 7 seasons. After that's kind of you're gonna have to. Yeah, I think by that point I would recommend the whole show, because you're already past the halfway mark. You might as well go all the way. So yeah, I would highly recommend Smallville. It's available on Hulu, so go check that out. You can also buy it on DVD if you're crazy enough to buy it like me. But even though I don't have everything, I still count myself as that. So yeah, go watch it. Let me know in the comments below. Have you watched Smallville? Let me know. I'm open to a conversation down there. And I think that's going to do it for me, everyone. So if you're unaware, this has been a quick impressions from What's on the Tube here on ActionX. If you want to know what we're doing overall, mainly on What's on the Tube, we do Nancy Drew Season 2 episode reviews each and every Thursday morning after a brand new episode on Wednesday nights on the CW. And then free after that on the CW app and CW.com. And we also do Walker episode reviews each and every Friday morning after a brand new episode on Thursday nights on the CW. Free the next day on CW app and CW.com. And usually during this time slot, normally we'd be doing every Rookie Season 3 episode reviewed every Monday morning after a brand new episode on Sunday nights on ABC, or the day after on Hulu as well. So next week, I believe we're doing Lost. I got lost thinking about that. No pun intended. I forgot, like, what am I doing next week? Because next week is Super Bowl, so I'm going to be very much advanced recording that one because I'm busy Super Bowl Sunday, so I have things planned for that day, so I will be busy. I opened up my wound. I'm bleeding out. So, again, if you're unaware, this has been What's in the Tube from ActionX. If you want to see more What's in the Tube, please subscribe to ActionX on youtube.com/ActionX. Ring that bell for notification when our next video is live. Like, favorite, share this quick impressions if you want to, but it does help us out, get us out there to new people who have yet to see our content. Helps us support us, and it's also for free. Follow us on social media, including Twitter, if you want to stay up to date with the channel. Follow us on Twitch, which usually we'll be streaming there, but my Elgato broke, so I'm still not able to stream, which fucking sucks. But, again, thank you so much for watching. Be safe out there, be good to each other, and I'll see you guys, hopefully, down the line. Peace out. Somebody say